Edition of NASCAR DFS Preview. I'm AustYn.
And I'm Yacs.
And we're going to Texas Motor Speedway for the Autotrader EchoPark Automotive 500.
Yep, that's it.
This is the first points race at Texas this season. We have had the race at the All-Star race earlier on in the year. Was at Texas, and Kyle Larson actually won that. But that was an exhibition race. I didn't really look at it. I don't think it's a great thing to look at really for your strategies. But you can. I mean, it's not, going to hurt anything, I guess. But
Kyle Larson dominated it, so, I mean,
yeah,
that's the only thing you can really take away from it.
Yep, and now we are down to 8 drivers.
Yep.
So the infamous Kevin Harvick deal with the Roval wrecking himself because he saw Chase in the rearview mirror.
He got scared.
Pretty much, yep. And so he's out of it. Christopher Bell was eliminated as well. That rhymed. Who else got eliminated?
Blaney.
That's right. No, Blaney. Bowman. Bowman and Byron.
Bowen, Byron, Bell, Harvick.
Yes.
I was about to say Blaney, but Blaney's still in it.
Yeah, Blaney is still in it.
Yep, that's it.
So that's, you got your 8 remaining drivers, which we'll go over that too here in a second with our lineups, and you'll see where DraftKings and FanDuel kind of priced them. Texas Motor Speedway is 1.5 mile, tri-oval, kind of like the cookie-cutter traditional tracks like Charlotte, Atlanta, not really like Atlanta, but that kind of style, Vegas. It's one of the Bruton Smith, Marcus Smith owned tracks, so it kind of resembles a lot of the others. The exits of the corners are a little different, coming out like a 2. It's got a different way the wall juts out. It's kind of a little different. There's 334 laps, so we have a lot of laps, so it's very important to pick the most, or the driver that leads the most laps, basically. Yeah. So track position will be key. I didn't have a lot of good analytics on where the starting positions are in terms of who wins here the most, but I do know that track position will be key, and it's a playoff race, so that'll be something to look forward to. The playoff teams will be ready to go, and they'll be very strong, I imagine, at this race. This is what, 4 to go now?
Yep, 4 to go. So it'll be 3 this round, then it'll be the end at Phoenix.
Yep,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the season flew by.
Yeah.
So we only got 4 races to go. Kyle Larson won last week, as you all know. 7th win, I believe, this season. So yeah, I'm trying to think of any NASCAR news. They did do the new generation car. They tested it at Charlotte.
The Roval.
The Roval, yep. Definitely going to be interesting. Sounds way different. The way the car looks, it looks more like a street car, but it's almost like a cross between IMSA and a Cup car, to be honest with you. That's what it looks like to me.
It's going to be a little different. I mean, the racing and all that's still going to be the same, but it's just going to be like little tweaks, and it's going to be interesting to look out for next year.
Yep. Yeah, so there was a few drivers, they like it, I guess. It's just different.
Yeah.
Going to be different, especially with the one lug nut, too, and just the way the car drives with the vents and everything, too, I heard. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other big news.
GMS bringing on Ty Dillon next year. The Cup Series.
Yep, so full time.
The 90, was it 94? I was getting ready to say 94.
Yep.
94 ride. First time since, I guess, Bill Elliott raced.
Yeah, that I can remember. I mean, Chase drove it in the Truck Series, but...
Oh, that's true. But in the Cup Series, I think that's the last time they raced that 94.
And GMS is in Statesville, their shop, and it's the same shop that Bill Elliott had years ago.
That's true.
So I think that was probably part of it.
Yeah.
To be honest, Mike Beam is like the director over there, and he worked with Bill a lot. So, so there's that. I'm trying to think. There is a 27 team that's coming up next year. I don't know if you saw this or not, but it's going to be a European-owned team.
I did see something about that.
I'm going to butcher this guy's name, and I apologize. Luis Hezemans.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and Jock Villeneuve actually did the test too at the Roval. So that's going to be a team. I think they're going to switch off some drivers.
Let's say, do you know who's racing that? I didn't see that.
But I imagine, I don't really even know who their alliance is going to be with. I didn't look that much into it. I just know it's going to be the 27 team and European involvement. Front Row Motorsports was going to sell their charter at 2311. Those talks backed out, so I don't know. Kirk Bush will probably end up being a non-chartered driver next year. There are no more champions provisionals. So that's going to be interesting. I don't think that's going to be a big deal. I think it hurts their like revenue or something, what they take in, but Kurt will probably run pretty well, honestly.
Yeah.
About like he does now.
Yeah.
I'd imagine. Maybe a little worse.
It won't be a ton different, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Because we saw back in those days when he lost his ride at Penske. I mean, he's still running pretty well in those lower tier rides.
Yep.
So I don't think it'll be a ton different. I mean, it won't be as well as he's been running here like the last year or two, but we'll see.
Yep.
I don't know.
But yeah, other than that, I don't really have anything else. Playoffs are winding down, so
I can't think of anything else either.
So we got what? Texas, Martinsville, and what's the other track?
Texas, Martinsville. Well, Phoenix is the last one.
Yep.
I'm not thinking of it right now. I'll let you know later in the video.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
I'll let you know. I don't remember.
Yep. All right, so I guess we'll just go ahead and jump in, see what DraftKings has to offer for us here.
Alrighty.
So, scroll up to the top here. The most expensive driver on DraftKings is Kevin Harvick, starting in 24th. A little shocking to me. He's at 10.9. Not the fact that he's the most expensive, but that price, 10.9, is very cheap. Kyle Larson is second at 10.5. Martin Truex Jr. starting in 8th at 10.3. And Chase Elliott, we only have 4 drivers, 10K on DraftKings, starting in 6th at 10.1.
Texas is this one. Kansas, and then Martinsville.
Gotcha. Okay. So we got mile and a halfs and then short track.
Yep.
So, so yeah, that's you only have 4 drivers that are 10K at the moment. Kevin Harvick may be a little chalky. I'm going to try to do this the way I did it last week in terms of picking the most picked driver, the driver I think will be picked the most. How about that? And then, my locks, so to speak, for the race. Now, I do believe Kevin Harvick will be highly owned, but the most locked driver to me will be Kyle Larson. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he'll be picked the most. Starting on the pole, I could easily see him leading 150 laps or 100. Heck, if he leads 80, that would be great if you pick him there. 10.5 is really cheap for a driver that has been dominating like Kyle. And Kevin Harvick has had great starting positions, to be honest with you, the whole entire year because he's been consistent. 24th is just not a good spot for him, and I don't know how he's going to be able to work his way through the field in this race. I know that he's pretty good here. His average finish is 10.4. But I did a little algorithm in terms of picking the lineup, or I suggest you out there, if you want to take this, you can. The same tire model will be used. So there's 9 sets of tires for this race, and as I mentioned, 334 laps. The same tire model is being used at this race that was used at Las Vegas for the 2 races, and at Kansas, and at Michigan. So you have 4 races to look at, and Kansas is actually next week, so whoever performs well this week, look for them to perform well next week too. I looked at those 4 races and averaged up the finishes for these drivers, and the number 1 average finisher in terms of all 4 races was Kyle Busch. I don't know if you expected that one there. Average finish of 3.5 in those 4 races. Pretty dominant. Mm-hmm. He did win, I believe, only one. Trying to think here. The Ryan Blaney won one of the races. Kyle Larson won one. I believe Denny Hamlin won at Vegas. I believe Kyle Busch won at Michigan.
I can tell you real quick.
Not 100% sure.
It was a mile and a half. I don't remember which one. Oh, you said Michigan?
I think so. I believe he did win the Michigan race.
Well, that's not a mile and a half.
Well, it's the same tire as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's like the same kind of
Kansas. You won at Kansas.
Okay. Well,
they're not using the same tire model as Kansas?
They are. He won one of the races, so I've got one of those flip-flopped.
Okay.
I've got somebody somewhere they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Denny Hamlin won at Vegas, and I'm pretty sure that Kyle Larson won. So I guess Ryan Blaney won at Michigan. That's what I'm thinking.
That sounds right.
So yeah. Anyway,
Yep,
Kyle Busch
Blaney.
3.5. Kyle Busch is at 3.5 on average finishes there, and also Kyle Larson is 8.25. But I mean that's still good enough for me to pick him. I think that he'll lead the most laps, and that'll be a great choice for you out there. Denny Hamlin starting in 2nd, Kyle Busch starting in 3rd, 9.9 and 9.8. Pretty well priced, to be honest with you. DraftKings definitely let you they threw in a couple drivers that are going to throw you off, like Ross Chastain at 8-9. Ross Chastain has been highly priced. I get that he's a pretty good driver, but why is he higher priced than Brad Keselowski?
That don't make any sense.
Brad Keselowski starting in 7th spot. And this is a great pick for you out there if you're doing a tournament lineup. 8.5. His average finish is those 4 races that I mentioned, the 4 tire model races. 5.25. So he even is finishing better than where he's starting, and he's a playoff driver. And you know how the playoffs go. These top drivers, they always finish top 10. They don't really have a lot of surprises unless you're at Talladega or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
Or Martinsville. I mean, even Martinsville's, you know, a place where wreckage happens, and Texas is just not one of them. Texas is pretty straightforward in terms of the racing. But the next driver that I'm going to pick, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you this is my second lock, is Matt DiBenedetto. So Matt DiBenedetto is at 7,400 on DraftKings. Pretty reasonably priced. He could be priced a little more. He's starting in 13th, and that's why. Being in 13th spot, a lot of people are going to see that number. They're not going to go with it. They're going to be like, well, that's probably about where he'll end up. Average finish is 9.5 on those 4 races for Matt DiBenedetto. So they definitely have these tracks down pat. Now, I do understand Texas is different, but when your car is driving that well on those tires, and Texas is a low-wear track, just like all the others that I mentioned. Kansas is not high-wear. Michigan might be a little bit, but Vegas ain't. Vegas and Kansas are not. That is my next lock pick at 7,400. Now, you can look at the drivers down towards the bottom. The driver that Timmy Hill is actually 5,400 there, so let me cut it off at Anthony Alfredo. Anthony Alfredo, to give you a little example, I really thought about picking him, but before I did research, or after I did research, the 4 races, he's got a couple like 20-some finishes in there. 27 is his average finish, so that's probably about where he'll end up, 28th.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We got Michael McDowell starting 16th. If you're going to go cheap, I wouldn't recommend Corey LaJoie. I wouldn't recommend Anthony Alfredo, but I probably would recommend Michael McDowell. Average finish of 17.75. Now, that is enough room to where even if he finishes around 18th or 19th, you're going to lose some value there, but that's why you pick a driver like Kyle Larson or somebody like that to lead your laps, and then that kind of saves you in the end. Because a driver like Cole Custer starting in 20th, or, hey, if you go with LaJoie or those guys, they might get you like 15 points. McDowell could still get you 25 or so, 20 couple, which is more. I mean, it's only a few points, but that's the difference between winning big money and between, missing out.
Yep.
A lot of your tournaments, top 24%, top 20%, anywhere from that range, pay out. So you want to get your edge where you can. And I think that McDowell could be a great pick that probably people won't pick him. Starting in 16th, he's a good tournament option.
Yeah, people are going to see that 16. They're going to be like, that's a bad spot to start from.
Yep, and that's these kind of races. Any race that has more than 300 laps, I love trying to find those spots. So I do believe he'll be less than 10% on a lot of your tournaments and a lot of your games that you play in general. Cash game probably too. But he's a good pick. Chris Buescher is another one that I looked at. He's starting in 10th. Average finish of those races is 15.5. Very good. Top 15 car, but starting in 10th, that's just too much. Had he been starting in 16th or 17th, pull the trigger automatically. But 10th is pretty high. And for him to get a top 10, it's possible. I just don't see it that highly likely. Eric Jones has a good track record here. Average finish of 10.3 overall. But that was all in that 20 car. So, throw that out the window. His average finish on the 4 races was not very good. It was in the 20s. But here's a couple drivers here. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Ryan Newman. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting in 27th. Average finish at the 4 races that I mentioned, 27th. 18th. He's starting at 27th.
Mm-hmm.
Which is about 9 spots. So if you're looking at that, that's going to give you around 34 points, which is pretty good. It's about an 8th place finish or 9th place finish. Ryan Newman starting in 31st. Average finish of 19.5 on the 4 races. Now, if he was to finish 19th, that's 35 points or so. It's around that range, 33, 32 points, somewhere in that point total. So you're looking at like 11th place finish overall. And those two are very good drivers to pick. And, if you feel confident that they'll finish where they are, Then that leaves you with 89.50, and you can kind of scroll up and look. You could pull Brad Keselowski in and then get Alex Bowman, or you could pick Joey Logano. You go with the two Penske guys. I wouldn't recommend picking both. If you're going to pick both, don't pick Matt DiBenedetto. But if you pick both, you can make it work. Austin Dillon, starting in 15th, has an average finish of 17.75 on the 4. Honestly, that's just about like what Stenhouse and Newman are. And Tyler Reddick is 16 as average finish at the 4. So starting in 9th, that's just a little rough. And so there you go. Chase Briscoe starting in 26 is also a very good option. 7,900 is a little steep to pay for him, but he doesn't really start outside the top 20 very often.
No.
So he's not a bad option. His actually average at the 4 is 16.5. So you can take that for what you want. That's 10 spots. I would probably pull the trigger on him, even though it's right at 8,000. They priced him pretty perfect. Eric Almarola would not do that at 8,100. I just think a lot of people are going to look at Ross Chastain and pick him. And I think people are going to go with the Ryan Newman or Ricky Stenhouse type deal and go with Eric Almarola. So those are probably my 3 best options in terms of building a good foundation. Chase Briscoe, DiBenedetto, and Larson. In terms of playoff drivers, I'll just go through it really quick. Martin Truex Jr., 6.5 on the 4. So he's starting in 8th. 6.5 is a positive return. Chase Elliott is 7, so that's 1 less than where he's starting in 6. Denny Hamlin is 5.5 at 9,900. Kyle Busch, like I mentioned, 3.5. Kyle Busch could be like you go ahead and pull the trigger. And then Joey Logano, brace yourself for this one, 17.5. Did not expect that. He's not been that good at these tracks that are the same tire model, so that might be one you might want to fade until next week. Well, Kansas is the same thing. He'll run well at Martinsville. But Logano's just consistent. Ryan Blaney starting in 4th actually has an average finish of 8.0. It's okay. And I didn't really look at William Byron and Ross Chastain, but they weren't really that great, put it that way. And Kirk Busch, 11.5, so that's a pretty good return. Starting in 17th, 11.5. You can get the Busch brothers and Kyle Larson, and then you could go Ryan Newman. You'd still be left with 7,000. And if you want to go with like Michael McDowell, you could get Chase Briscoe. That's okay. That's a pretty good lineup, actually. Wouldn't be afraid of that one. So that's kind of my breakdown of the DraftKings pricing. Look at Brad Keselowski at 85. Christopher Bell even at 83 is interesting, but I think Kyle Larson's your pick to win the race. And I didn't look at the odds, but that's who I would go with. So that's what
Larson's the favorite. It basically 3 to 1.
3 to 1.
A little 3.2 to 1.
Okay.
So.
Yep. So that's what I got for DraftKings. So let's throw it on over to Yacs for FanDuel.
Right. Okay. I kind of glanced at the DraftKings lineup prior to us filming this. I didn't look too heavily into it, though. I did notice that Kevin Harvick was the highest price option on DraftKings over Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson is the most expensive option this week at $14.5. They've been doing that the last few weeks at $14.5, and they have the $1,000 gap between the most expensive and the second most expensive. Nothing's really changed here, but there are only our cutoff line's normally at 12,000. There's only 4 12,000 Tier 1 drivers, as we're calling it this year. So that's a little different. We'll see how that can factor into a lineup this week. But if you're noticing right here, you don't see Kevin Harvick until I scroll all the way down to 10,000.
Yeah.
Starting 24th, he's going to be our first driver off the board. DraftKings, you don't have to take him. A lot of people are going to take him. They're going to see that starting spot, 24th. That's a great starting spot for him. He's really good here. You can get away with it in DraftKings. I don't think you can get away with it in FanDuel, passing up $10,000 for Kevin Harvick. Now, his last couple weeks have been a little less than ideal.
Yeah, I'd say.
From a mental standpoint, a mental racing standpoint. But he's really good here. And we'll see if that's behind them. I don't think it is. I think Well, we'll see what happens. I don't want to say anything in particular what's going to happen next because I really don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But Kevin Harvick, just by going from the standpoint of can he perform at this track? Absolutely. 5.5 in his last 6. In the last 6 races, 2007 laps have been completed. He's led 451 of those. So he's hovering around that 25% laps led line in the last 6. So that's remarkable. And his career average finish, I didn't see where it ranks up on his best tracks list, but 10.4 career average in 36 races. So he has a great history here. And I think you can just go off of that, picking him at 10,000, starting in 24th. But we need to solidify this with one driver in the Tier 1 list. And I'm not going Kyle Larson. I think a lot of people are going to go Kyle Larson, and understandably so. But I'm going to go down the path with Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin's going to be my highest priced option this week. 13.5, starting in second. Not great at Texas. In his career, he's definitely not bad. 13.8 career average finish in 30 races. Last 6, 20.3. That's not good for a Tier 1 driver.
No, it's not.
But as AustYn said, in the pricing not the pricing model, the tire models.
Yep.
In that area, he has ran well at those tracks, the intermediate tracks. Michigan was in that list, and I think that was the only non-intermediate track.
Yeah.
He's ran well at those tracks, around a 5th place finish.
5.5.
Yep. But with Denny Hamlin, the reason why I picked Denny Hamlin was because he has just been performing so well in the playoffs. 4.2 average finish since the playoffs started. And I didn't look at the rest of the drivers, but I'd say without a doubt that's the best. 4.2 average in his last 6. I'd say that's the best among the field. So that's the reason why I went with Denny Hamlin this week over Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson, like AustYn said, he was the All-Star winner this year at Texas, and he showed he can be dominant, and he's shown that all year. So understandable if you want to go with Kyle Larson over Denny Hamlin. But I think Denny Hamlin opens up more opportunities with that $1,000 gap. But we're going to move down. Move on down. Don't consider these guys. Anthony Alfredo is probably your cutoff. I'm really not even considering these guys. I just don't like them this week. Michael McDowell was interesting. I didn't really do any research on him. 16th, like I said earlier, it was that 16th starting spot is just, people are going to look at that and go be like, ugh, I don't like that. But I think you can go with someone like Michael McDowell. In DraftKings, easier for sure.
Yeah.
But in FanDuel, you can go with somebody like that and get another playoff driver. So that could help you out there. But we're going to move up a little bit. Ryan Newman's an interesting option. I didn't look at his stats, but he's one of those guys that can get you a top 20 and any given race. But you're not banking on it, obviously.
Yeah.
But 31st starting spot, that's a good spot for him. But we're going to go with one place above, and that is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Not so great at Texas. Among the other intermediate tracks, he's decent. Really solid, especially in that car. 23.7 in his last 6 at Texas. Not great. In his career, he's never gotten a top 10. Not encouraging.
No.
But you can go with him this week. 5,700 is very, very, very cheap. See, I mean, you're looking at these guys like Ryan Preece, Michael McDowell, Ryan Newman. He's in that range. And starting 27th, I think that's a great price for him. I didn't really do any research about his intermediate tracks, but it looked like he was finishing around 15th. Basically, everywhere that he finished on the lead lap, or he finished the race. So 15th, that's a great return starting 27th, especially when you're paying $5,700. We're gonna look up here at, let's see, average per driver. We got 10.4 to spend on 2 drivers.
And I just like to say about Stenhouse, the fact he doesn't have a top 10 is pretty wild. But 9 of his 16 races, if he are 16th or better, so
yeah,
I mean that's pretty high.
Yeah, and that's really all the range that you want. That's the range that you are banking on, really. Yeah.
He gets like 17th or something. That's pretty good. I mean,
Oh yeah, a 17th between a 14th and a 17th. That's about where he's probably going to finish if he finishes the race. So it's something to keep an eye out for. But starting 27th, that's great value. That's great value, $5,700. Like I was saying, 10.4 to spend on the next 2 drivers. There's a lot of different things that you can go with here. Let's see.
There's for Brad Keselowski this week on either one of them platforms.
Yeah. Brad Keselowski, I think, is a little better off in FanDuel. I mean, fairly priced.
Yeah.
I think he's just DraftKings was just kind of unfair to him. I didn't really understand. He was like 8,500 or in that range.
Yep, 85.
Yeah, that don't make a whole lot of sense in DraftKings. I would definitely consider him in DraftKings because he's just solid everywhere, and he's in the playoffs. So you want as many guys in the playoffs as you possibly can have, or at least competed in the playoffs. That have ran well all year. But there's a lot of different options you can go with in DraftKings and FanDuel this week. Chase Briscoe was a guy that I was strongly considering. That he's a guy that can get you a top 15. The equipment's good enough. 6,700 is a very reasonable price for him. We're not going to go with him though. Eric Jones has a great history here at Texas, but we've not seen him in that 43 car at Texas. I don't remember how he finished in the Open, but he didn't make it to the All-Star race. So we know he didn't perform well enough to make it to the All-Star race. Bubba Wallace starting 18th. That's about probably where he'll finish. Around the top 20. That'll be his area where he's going to run. Ross Chastain. I didn't look into his Xfinity stats here. I don't think they were great. But he's not ran in quality equipment at this track. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I really considered Eric Almarola. Has a great history here. Last 6 was 13.7, and he won the All-Star Open this year, surprisingly enough. And he ran well in the All-Star race. He was like consistently hanging around the top 5. I think he ended up like 8th place in the All-Star race, so he ran well. This is one of his tracks that he's just solid at. 12.8. Here's what I was going to do. I was really wanting to pair him. I was down to these 3. I had these 3 drivers solidified, and I was down to 2 drivers. I was going to go with him, and I was going to go with Kyle Busch, and we couldn't afford him. We were 200 short.
Close, yeah. 200
short. So I had to switch up my game plan a little bit. And Kyle Busch has a great history here. He has a great history everywhere. But great history here. AustYn was talking. He has a great history this year with the similar tire model. And that was very encouraging to hear. So Kyle Busch is basically a lock, I would say, if you want to go him. You could make a similar lineup with switching Hamlin and Busch. You could go that route. Or you could go I don't know. You could do a lot of different things this week. But we couldn't afford them, so we're not going with Eric Almarola. Let's see. DiBenedetto, I was kind of surprised to hear you talk about how well he's been performing at these tracks. I didn't really expect that. But he's just been a solid racer, and we'll see what happens next year. I don't know. There's not been any talks about what he's going to do next year. If he's going to be in the Cup Series, if he's going to be in the Xfinity Series, nobody knows. So we'll find that out probably in a couple months, but nothing's come up to the news in the last little bit about him, so nobody knows. Tyler Reddick, I think that starting spot's just, well, first instinct, you're like 8,200 starting in ninth. I don't know. And I kind of feel that way just thinking about it. But I think he could get a solid finish here, and he's gotten solid finishes as of late. But we're going to go with Kirk Bush. We're going to go with Kyle's brother. Great history at Texas. 7.8 in his last 6. Along with that, to add on a little bit, 8 straight top 10s at Texas.
Wow.
10, 9, 7, 7, 9, 9, 8, 7. So he doesn't finish inside the top 5, but he's going to get you a top 10 finish. And
Sounds like
I think the streak continues. Well, at least I hope the streak continues.
Yeah.
8,700, great price for him. A lot of people are going to pick him. A lot of people are going to pick him and Harvick. That's why I wanted to get Denny Hamlin on here. I don't think a lot of people are going to be picking Denny Hamlin, especially when Kyle Larson's right there and Kyle Busch is right there. I think they're going to overlook Denny Hamlin. I hope they overlook Denny Hamlin, but we'll see. Stenhouse, I really don't know how people are going to pick him this week, and I don't think it really should concern you because that's just a great value there. So we have 12,100 left to spend on our last driver. I was down to a couple people. Well, this is really just a good sample size right here. Christopher Bell, Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski, William Byron, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, and Martin Truex Jr. That's just a great sample size right there. And I don't think you can go wrong with really any of them. I wouldn't go Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman's not really performed well at all at mile-and-a-half tracks, but the rest of them have not been bad. Brad Keselowski's solid there. William Byron's solid there. Bell's not the greatest at mile-and-a-halves, but he could get you a good finish. He can get you a top 10. Ryan Blaney's awesome at Texas. Joey Logano's solid at Texas. And Martin Truex, he's just solid at mile-and-a-halves. You can't really go wrong with any of these options. 12,100, you're going to have a little bit left to spend. I'm going to go with Joey Logano. AustYn was trashing on Joey Logano, but I think that's a reason to pick him, though.
Yeah.
Because
people will see that.
Yeah, people who are going deeper into details about the research are going to see that Joey Logano this year has not performed well at these intermediate tracks. He's not performed well this season at those tracks. But in the past, he has. And it's playoff time. It's deep into playoff time. You're in round of 8. He's 7th in points. He's good. Well, I mean, not that any of them are not racing harder than the other, but they're all racing hard. But Joey Logano, 7.2 in the last 6 at Texas, 13.4 career average in 25 races. Like I was saying, 7th in points. It's better to get that win early. And he can get a win at Texas. He's gotten a win at Texas before. And we'll see how it plays out. I like a lot of these guys that I had left to pick. And you're having, you're seeing right there, 1,600 left to spend. You're going to have some money left over. Let's clean this up. I don't think I have any more to add. Going to go with Denny Hamlin. I think a lot of people are going to be picking Larson and Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has a great history here. Kyle Larson was the winner of the All-Star race this year, and he's just been dominated at all these tracks. I think people are going to be overlooking Denny Hamlin, who I don't know why they should, because 4.7 average in the playoffs this year. 4.2 instead of 4.7. I don't know why I said 4.7. Not a great track record here, and that could be a reason for people to overlook him and that you should put him in your lineup. That should give you a reason to put him in your lineup. Joey Logano, not the greatest track record this year at mile and a halves and intermediates. But he has a decent history here, 7.2 in the last 6. And kind of like Denny Hamlin, I think people are going to overlook him just a little bit. But we'll see. Kevin Harvick, starting 24th, $10,000. He will be picked a lot. There's no getting around it. But he's well worth it. 5.5 in the last 6 at Texas. And he's just been solid here throughout his career. That 24th starting spot is just going to yield a lot of value. Kirk Bush is next off the board, 8,700, starting 17th. In the last 6, I didn't mention this earlier, but he's the only one among the field in the last 6 to get a top 10 every race. And I think that speaks a lot to his value at 8,700. 8 straight top 10s at Texas. And that's about as consistent as you can get, and that's what you want in your lineups. Especially at a track like a mile and a half that's got a lot of laps, like 334.
Yep.
That's going to be a lot of laps. And I'm not saying he'll win the race, but look for him to get a top 10, that's for sure. And our last driver off the board will be Ricky Stenhouse Jr. We'll have 1,600 left to spend at the end, but I think you can make a lineup like this and you're just going to have a little bit left over. He's 5,700, starting 27th. He's solid at these mile and a half intermediate tracks. Even though Texas has not been the greatest to him, I think he can get you a good finish here. And a 15th is about what you want with Stenhouse, and I think he can definitely get you that. So that's what we have for FanDuel this week.
Yep, so there you see, both of us kind of doing a little different strategy in terms of who we believe is going to be a good driver to pick and who's not. But I know, like Ricky Stenhouse, he's in a Hendrick car practically. Kirk Bush is kind of too. So yeah. It's that's one of the good reasons to pick those drivers for sure. But yeah, so that's what we got pretty much on analysis there. So if you like what you see here, just subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also hit the like button and hit the bell notification to let you know when the videos go up. And if you got any comments, concerns, questions, whatever, just put it on the comment section below. We'll try to answer them. And appreciate y'all. You know, we're running up on the end of the year, so this is going on the 3rd year we've done these videos. Mm-hmm. Maybe 4th.
Well, this is my first, so.
Yep. Yeah, so we've been doing this for a while, and it's pretty fun. So hopefully we're helping you guys out there, and you know.
Yeah, I'm having fun. I do know that.
Yep. So, yeah. So best of luck to you. Also, excuse me. Check us out on Twitter at @TheSportsChief and on Instagram as well on this @TheSportsChief and www.thesportscheef.com. We're on there too. So song of the day, a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. So, that's it.
Yep. So best of luck to you at Texas Motor Speedway, and I hope you win some money on DraftKings and FanDuel.
Let's hope we all win some money.
That's right.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.